The CSX and Norfolk Southern are now operating on 11 main lines out of Atlanta. Join with us for a fast-action tour of Atlanta's vibrant railroads today, as we remain mostly within the Interstate 285 loop. Stay clear of the tracks.
If there is a nucleus for Atlanta's railroads today, it is at Howell Tower, recently closed on the city's north side near the waterworks. Train movements at Howell Interlocking are now controlled by CSX's Atlanta dispatcher at Jacksonville, Florida. Here, 6 of the 11 CSX and Norfolk Southern lines, which radiate from the city, cross each other. And most trains from the other lines also need to pass through. 2 of the major Atlanta railroad yards, Norfolk Southern's Inman Yard and CSX's Tilford Yard, are side by side immediately northwest of Howell Tower. While more and more through trains now bypass these and other Atlanta railway yards, both facilities still see hundreds of rail cars daily, as trains arriving in Atlanta need to be broken up and reassembled into new trains. Much of this is done in hump yards, where strings of freight cars are slowly pushed over the crest of a rise, or hump, and are then uncoupled and allowed to drift downgrade by gravity and sorted onto different classification tracks. The major CSX line to Manchester and Waycross departs directly from Tilford Yard, thus avoiding Howell Tower. Near Tilford and Inman Yards are 2 older yards which now see relatively little rail activity. Howell Yard, CSX's other facility on the city's north side, is used primarily for car storage and a bulk intermodal distribution system. To the east of it, and clearly visible from passing MARTA trains, is Norfolk Southern's Armour Yard, now used to store passenger cars for Amtrak. From Howell Tower, the Norfolk Southern extends north, parallel to MARTA's Northeast Rapid Transit line to Chambly, Doraville, Charlotte, and eventually Washington. In the other direction, the Southern line extends 13 miles due west to Austell, where the track splits to go north to Chattanooga and west to Birmingham and New Orleans. Meanwhile, CSX reaches north from Howell Tower via its legendary Western and Atlantic line, still owned by the state of Georgia, where the track divides at Cartersville to reach Chattanooga and Knoxville. Another CSX main line heads east and north to Hamlet, North Carolina, and beyond. The westward route of the CSX line to Birmingham was mostly abandoned a few years ago. Extending south from Howell Tower through the center of the city is the joint line owned by both major railroads. The Georgia Railroad line splits off to the east, underneath the Georgia World Congress Center. The Georgia Railroad parallels MARTA as far as Avondale. Within sight of the Capitol Dome and nearby underground Atlanta, the busy Halsey Yard handles the heavy traffic of piggyback highway trailers and ocean shipping containers, and is clearly visible from MARTA trains. It is hard to recognize this totally paved-over facility for what it once was, a conventional railroad yard shared by the Georgia Railroad and the Atlanta and West Point Railroad. The joint line continues its southward trek to Industry Yard and is soon paralleled by the south line of MARTA on its way to the airport. This is Norfolk Southern's yard for Triple Crown Services freight in the Atlanta area, highway trailers which travel on their own railway wheels without benefit of the conventional piggyback flat car. The last major track split as we progress southward out of Atlanta occurs at East Point. The Norfolk Southern's former Central of Georgia line turns away to the southeast to head for Hapeville and Macon. From this point, CSX's Atlanta and West Point line leaves the joint trackage headed southwest for Montgomery. It crosses the other major CSX artery to the south to Manchester and Waycross, at an extensive junction spread over several miles between Union City and Fairbury. More and more rail traffic goes through Atlanta in complete trains, pausing only to change crews and refuel its locomotives. Nowhere is this more evident than in the unit trains of coal destined for electric power plants located throughout the southeast. Locomotives and other equipment are not isolated to the 2 major railroads that operate in the region today. It is not unusual to see locomotives from numerous foreign railroads that operate in other parts of the country pass through Atlanta.
This has been the story of Atlanta, a city built of the railroad and still very much a railroad city. Well, steam is gone except for a few excursion trains, and passenger trains are only a shadow of their former glory. But freight train traffic is growing. And with new advances in such areas as intermodal traffic, the railroads of today have a tremendous responsibility to move massive volumes of commodities.
The railroad surveyors, in locating the terminus of an iron trail in the desolate woodlands 8 miles south of the Chattahoochee, unknowingly fixed the site of a great city, a railroad city.